What is up, guys? Welcome back to TWE Charts. AMC, man, up 7% today, looking good. And I want to talk about the cycle. I want to talk about the next potential squeeze opportunity on AMC following this macro pump and dump, right? Because AMC did end up pumping and dumping. But the good news is fundamentals are good, right? You got to look at fundamentals at the end of the day. I know that that's not something we use here to predict the short-term outlook on stocks. I don't believe that's something that that works in that way. But we do follow fundamentals at the end of the day, right? Taking a look at Bed Bath and Beyond, I know that that was a stock that many retail traders believed would squeeze. And it did have its little pump and dumps, right? But at the end of the day, the company was and did go bankrupt. So, the price ended up, the shorts ended up taking over and basically having the stock delisted. So that's not something that I see happening with AMC. Way to check this, go on the indicator tab, revenue, total revenue. Okay, quarterly, you can do total equity and market cap. All right, something I talked about on the last stream we had here. So a few things in check, right? So AMC right now, and this is total revenue right up here. So revenue is climbing. It's been climbing ever since 2020, which is good. That's a good sign that revenue is going up, right? So there's still a little bit of work that has to be done here on debt. Total equity is going to take into account liabilities, so that's why we do have right now a negative $2.13 billion dollar equity, total equity. So we are down on that, and usually the chart is going to look more like the total equity than it is everything else, right? Market cap, okay, shows everything as far as splits and the dilution that is taking place, right? Sometimes a chart is going to kind of sugarcoat that in a way. That's why I do like looking at, overall market cap. I think it shows you a good, just a almost a better chart, honestly. I think as far as technicals go, you're still going to have to rely on the main chart more than the market cap one, but right now we're sitting at $1.3 billion, okay? So here's the thing. Here's where things can get a little bit sticky when trying to narrow down these volatility windows, right? Because that's what we do in this channel, is trying to narrow down what we call POIs, points of interest. And that's a way to basically ignore everything in between. Like anything where the market trades sideways, where we have stagnant pressure, sucks. And this happens with AMC all the time, but it's pretty clear that the cycle here is following a algorithm in which it suppresses the price or trades sideways for a little bit, and then it lets her go. So it lets it rip. Now, here is the new cycle here. I basically have narrowed down these points of interest for you guys so you can see where they happen and the correlation. So we can see outside of these volatility windows, which are 13 days, and they do range. I do give a 2-day window between the before it comes in and where it ends on where these volatility events take place. So what we know right now so far is that every 62 days, there is some form of volatility occurs or has the potential to occur. But that's not always the case, right? Because there are periods in the market where stocks trade sideways, and it all really depends on what the overall markets are doing, right? If the overall markets are just, slowly climbing up, there's really not much volatility happening, then chances are that the stock here is not going to experience any major volatility. Okay, so with AMC, we have 5 instances where the price experienced heavy volatility. November 2020, we have obviously January 2021, June, March, August. These are the 5 that actually played out in what we call a positive POI. Positive POIs are where the price basically has a little mini squeeze or goes up at least 70% inside that volatility window. So you see this with volume, right? Volume is very high in these little sections, these little windows, right? Now, the price can also show an inverse version of this volatility POI, right? An inverse POI, which means that the price does the complete opposite. It goes, if you're tracking downside, it can be an inverse positive POI. But in this case, on AMC, right, we're tracking upside, but we do experience these volatility windows sometimes just flipping and going down. So a major example of this is what happened recently in August, right? We had the price basically inverse squeeze. Like if you take this from the bottom and to the peak, really, right, where we had that after hours pump, lasted 10 minutes, and then completely got shut down. Okay, so this was 1,000% basically return for the shorts, right? We're not taking it from the top here because it's not going to show us the same return, right? This is not a 90% return on the shorts. It's truly a 1,000% return if somebody shorted it up there. So you do have to look at this as, you know, where in the cycle has this happened before? And the only other time we've seen it go up 1,000% was in January of 2021, right? January of 2021, it did that 1,000%. And then in June, we had about a 600% rally. So similar to it. Now the price flips and we find ourselves in a accumulation phase. So this is what the video is going to be about, is a squeeze scenario based on market cycles and where we are in the cycle. All right. So for those that are new and you know, you're probably wondering like what is this 62-day cycle, or what's this volatility window that we're tracking here? So basically, what we started with here on the channel back in 2021 was narrowing down the way the algorithm distributes and typically follows this option chain. Okay, so these expiration dates that happen in the markets, how the algorithm uses volume, distributes, creates these patterns, and then either lets go or rugs the stock based on the hedging position. So, okay, market hedging, hedgy, right? These guys are able to use the option chain to leverage their positions and basically control the price. And that's what I believe. That's what this channel is basically covering, right? On every single video is just the way that these guys control the stocks and this basket of stocks, really. So, you know, we have to come in here and zoom in on the chart because we can't really see what's going on. And the last quite a bit, man, ever since this volatility window here in August, we really haven't seen anything, right, on AMC. It's just been trading sideways. Most of these are just heading down. Direction is down, but it's really not that crazy. Like, we're not experiencing any real volatility ever since ape, right? The whole ape thing. Now, going to this next point of interest that we're tracking here, which happens in December, so next week. All right, this just gives the opportunity again for AMC to experience volatility. It's not saying it's going to squeeze here, okay, but it's giving the opportunity based on the correlation, which right now is 5 for 6. Now, that's kind of a stretch just because this pump here happened in the after-hour session without any market control in being able to stop this volume. And the algorithm quickly shut it down. So if you just draw a trajectory line, it just comes back into that trajectory line before coming down. This is a very classic liquidity grab. You see these happening all the time in the crypto markets. So AMC basically did that, right? It pumped high volatility, extreme volatility, and then it came back down in order on this algorithm, right? This flow. Now, coming back to these levels that we're currently trading at, because AMC right now is looking good, and I'm going to show you guys where I think we are in the algorithm. But right now, we have a week to go to enter this volatility zone, and my prediction here for this specific volatility zone is that it trails up and potentially hits that $9.50 to $10 range. Okay, I don't think it's going to squeeze here. And the reason for this is, well, I'm taking a look at the overall markets as well. AMC typically, if it's going to squeeze or have a big rally, it's going to do it when the markets are getting ready to come down. And I personally don't believe the markets are getting ready to come down. I think that we're in a stage of redistribution in the overall markets, SPY, even in the crypto markets right now, which means that when you're in redistribution, AMC could be in like a short-term distribution, because AMC rallies when the markets are going to come down. And that correlation you guys can check as well. Normally, that is the way that things occur with high meme stocks, right? And even in the crypto markets, you see it happen with the meme cryptos, right? Like Doge, Shiba, Pepe, all these guys will tend to go last when the markets are getting ready to turn around for a while, right? So taking a look at that in the markets, and if you guys want some analysis on that, the last live stream I did here goes over that on a macro analysis on SPY, so you guys can check that out. Okay. Now, here is the cycle. Let's pull it up. Here's the inverse squeeze. All right, goes down 1,000%. Okay, and then here's our most recent volatility zone, which ended up going up a little bit and creating this inverse arc effect, which I'm going to pull up the section I think we're playing out right now, inverse. And then the price starts to come down, and now it's getting ready to turn around, right? We have some other memes right now that are pumping. So I think AMC in the short term will experience some upside, okay? Now, here's the pattern that I am tracking. Okay, if we go back to 2021 and we take the arc pattern here, okay, all the way to November, this is where the markets flipped, right? We were in a pennant. And then on this point of interest here, guys, okay, the markets ended up flipping, and you can compare this right here, this section, to what happened in August recently here, right? Now, this was a lot, much greater dump than what happened in November, but that is where the algorithm flipped and came back to grab liquidity down here. All right, so I think that we're doing this right now. I think that this is just flipped. I think the algorithm is doing this. Now, if we come in, zoom in a little bit, you can even see the structure here. And the crazy thing about this, guys, is that this lines up, okay? Not only does it look similar, right? Okay, we have inverse arc right here. We call this a arc pattern. Not only does this line up with the way this pattern looks inverse, but this also lines up with the cycle, right? And that's the crazy part here. So here's the cycle for you guys. And one thing you guys do need to do when you're tracking these is the AMC chart has a bit of flawed data on TradingView, and you can see some of these arcs here are actually, so they're supposed to be 62 days long, about 62, which they are right here. But if you bring this over here, it changes completely. It's only 41, and it's a lot bigger. So this pattern does need to be stretched out. It needs to be a little bit bigger. And you guys know that the way that we track this here is using the 62-day cycle is the AMC arc anyway. So fitting it to, yep, that size right there, and then flipping it here is the way to go. Because again, TradingView has a the data here is not, yeah, it's not accurate for some reason. So it's kind of annoying, but Here's that pattern. We can use this now based on that. And again, come down and see that the structure here is very similar, right? Got the inverse arc, this little mid phase here, and then it's just a short-term distribution phase that has a spring, and then the spring brings the stock to start climbing back up. So it's just a macro accumulation phase, in my opinion, right? We thought we were going to have a smaller accumulation phase here, which would pump the stock very quickly. And if you zoom out, it would have looked like a massive spring here. But that's just not the case because AMC has only climbed 60% max following this 1,000% pump. So it makes you think like, well, these guys are really suppressing the price. And when the price is extremely suppressed like this, yeah, you enter a accumulation phase. They have that power to be able to trade the stock sideways. So the opportunity does not happen until the end of the accumulation phase. And this sucks because the algorithm here is just crushing, especially in the option chain here, so much theta, so much time is being crushed here on any contracts that are outside of the money. And that's a way these guys are able to collect premiums, right? They'll pump the stock a little bit, they'll dump it, they'll trade it sideways, collect premiums. That's what they're doing. So where is this, the squeeze scenario here that I have is based not on this point of interest coming up here, but the one that is coming up in what would be November time here. November, this is where the stock flips, the pennant breaks, but it breaks down. Okay, in this case, we would have a similar formation. It's not the same, right, with levels, but the POIs here, the structure of it is the same. So this is basically what this is making right now. Say it comes down and does something like this, right? The next POI doesn't happen until February. This is where it happens right here. So if the stock is going to bottom, whatever it ends up doing here, if it's going to bottom sometime in the near future or maybe early next year, it's still projected to climb up and then break out for good. Once it breaks out for good, this should have some form of a squeeze, right? Now there's a lot of definitions and different standards to what a squeeze is. But guys, anything that goes up, over like in the mid to long term, that goes up 500% is considered a squeeze. That's a lot of a return. Okay, and when prices are trading at these levels, you do have to look at the macro chart to start tracking where the price is going to go, where it's going to stop, trade sideways for a little bit, and that's kind of what I want to talk about here based on this, right? So going into February, that's the next point of interest, right? Let's take this out here. So massive bump and dump, accumulation phase. What pattern has done this already? All right, what pattern am I tracking right now that has done this already? There's only one, okay, and this pattern is NVAX. Okay, NVAX is the only pattern right now that, apart from the other ones that were calling for upside earlier, it's the only one that is showing a good correlation. This one I found with the pattern scanner, and I love the setup here, not only because of the way it distributes here, the way it dumps and accumulates and then goes, but because the historical data is also pretty accurate when looking at just levels. Let me see if I still have, yep, here it is. Here is the pattern, okay? And here are the levels here, and then basically it dumps the same way. It's got a similar structure. It's not one-to-one. It's not going to be better than the ARPA pattern, right? The ARPA pattern is, till this day, the most accurate one. It's been shifted here, but it did stop tracking in 2022. So this one here, it was great till 2022, and then the premium chart here die down on volatility. So we're not longer really tracking this one for levels, more just for these volatility windows. Now, coming down to this range here, this is saying that it would trade sideways for a little while, right? I have the other pattern here up until February time where it starts to actually climb in what we call this advancing phase. Now, the crypto markets are doing this right now. The crypto markets are in a reaccumulation going into advancing, which is what AMC is not doing yet. AMC is just now stepped into accumulation. And when you do that, you trade sideways for a while. And sometimes the price looks like it's going to distribute, but it's really just accumulating. It's accumulation, a lot of volume is coming in, and then they just start pumping it. They start pumping it like crazy. There's a lot of fake outs on the way up, and then it squeezes, right? And then it goes. So based on this and the projection, okay, this is based on, well, guys, if they were able to dump this for what is going to be almost 3 years now, and you are checking off, fundamentals are good, everything else is good on that, then the trajectory should be pointing up. Like there's no reason why it should be trading down here. So if this ends up squeezing and goes beyond this first macro level of resistance, which is going to be around 40, right? There's a lot of volume here. This is the first step that needs to cross. Now, if it hits this and does not cross, then we would enter a reaccumulation phase as long as the stock is trailing up, as long as there is some kind of evidence that the stock is going to turn around. You want it to do that first, and this can happen, and the stock can trade sideways for a few months again until it gets to the next phase, right? A lot of stocks right now in the market are doing this. We have Carvana, right? These guys are all in reaccumulation, in my opinion. And then we have some other stocks that are in accumulation, have already, they're basically getting set to go into advancing. So that's the only difference, guys. These stocks in the market, okay, after a macro distribution phase, they will rotate, sectors will rotate and take turns going up. So one of the things I said on the live stream was, right now, I believe the markets are in advancing, they're in reaccumulation, and they are in advancing. And most stocks right now are in reaccumulation. There's barely any stocks here, and there are some that are in distribution. Okay. Like there's a few that I believe are still going to go lower before going into advancing or accumulation. But I think AMC is right here. I think it's an accumulation. It's getting ready to create a little projector that would then make the possibility of a squeeze greater, right? So I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, guys, go watch the first video I posted on this channel. It talks about the cycle in the form of a song, and it's just, yeah, I mean, it's some fun stuff. So check that out, guys. But so my projection on this, my little squeeze scenario, is, well, some things have to happen first, right? The first thing that has to happen on AMC is that we have to reach that, $40 to $50 range. It has to be tested for the chance of a continuation to occur. Okay, after that, you start to look at everything else. Where is there resistance? Not only a descending resistance, but on a horizontal level, where's the next major resistance would be around 145 to 200, right? These are very close together, and also it's a low to track before the pennant broke down. So right around this range would be the next level to track. Anything after that, and you start to get into where a lot of this volume lies in between here, where they were hedging originally for what we called the $40 contracts in 2021. So this would be the next level, and this pattern kind of shows that for us. Here would be around 230. I wouldn't get and talk about anything else at this point. If there's enough pressure, enough longs that start jumping in, more FOMO starts to happen around these ranges, then the stock can continue to go up higher if it wants to. But right now, I believe that based on the outlook, based on where we are in this cycle and what it looks to be, this seems to be the more likely scenario based again on the cycle in this 13-day window. So this is what I'm tracking, man, for the next few weeks. I think in the short term, like I said, I'm tracking that $9.50 to $10 range. I think that's more likely. Anything to the downside, okay, would change the outlook slightly, but more downside on AMC is not something that is unlikely. It's something that can happen, and based on the market cap and everything we talked about, those are things that can happen, but it doesn't change the fact that if you're creating new lows, as long as the stock here is not trailing on a deeper level, right, where we're like heading down to past the $5 range, then it's pretty clear to me that we're in some form of accumulation, and the stock is going to turn around here in going into next year. All right, guys, that is it for this video. Just wanted to cover. I haven't done a video on Amy here in a little while. I know most of it is on the live streams, but if you guys like the analysis, make sure you like the video. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Okay, we go live here sometimes, and it's fun. It's fun. It's great stuff. All right, guys. Till next time. Bye-bye.